If you want to live the healthiest life that you can with the best possible quality of life, then you need to be training like an athlete, a generalist athlete, someone who's looking to develop all their athletic qualities. Because frankly, if you want to be ready for everything life is going to throw at you, then you need to have a well-rounded physical capability. You're going to need to have cardio if you want to take your kids out to play football. You're going to need to develop strength if you want to make sure you age gracefully and still get off the toilet on your own when you're 80. And you're going to need to develop mobility so that if you ever get put into an awkward situation in the sport, you don't just snap, and so that you actually feel good in your body day to day. There are a million different reasons that you should be training every athletic quality, but we're not going to list them all today. We've done that before. We're going to talk today about how you can fit athletic training into a short period of time, because one of the biggest bits of pushback I get from people who I say you need to train like an athlete to is that I just don't have the time, and it's just nonsense. If you program correctly, you can fit training into a really short period of time and still develop amazing, well-rounded athleticism. And that's what we're going to jump into today. We're going to talk through how you can develop well-rounded athleticism with just 3 hours a week in the gym. So let's jump into it. First things first, who is this program for? And I wanted to write this program for a realistic person who actually doesn't have a lot of time, so we can really see that this 3 hours is possible. And I wanted to pick a relatively normal person, and we'll show you how it works. So we're going to talk about a busy 40-year-old. They've got 3 hours a week to train, as we've said. They've got some gym experience, they've got some gym access, no major injuries, but because life has just got on top of them recently, maybe it's work, maybe they've got some kids who are just taking up a lot of time, they haven't really trained any power, they haven't trained any speed, they haven't been jumping, not been doing their mobility, they've not really done anything for a long time, they've just gone into the gym, maybe got a little bit of a pump on, maybe sat on the bike, which is a situation an awful lot of people get stuck in. And it leads to a problem which we got here, and this is why we're writing this plan. This is why this person wants to become more athletic, because their body essentially feels like it's stuck in the mud. They're 40, they're middle-aged, they're not super old, they should feel good, but they've got low energy, they've got bad mobility, it's like uncomfortable just to tie your shoelaces, which makes life feel like a bit of a struggle. They don't feel strong in their body and they don't feel powerful, they don't feel like they can really get going anymore. And we've mentioned they don't do much cardio, obviously we've highlighted poor energy, but that's probably where it's coming from. We can also say their lungs just don't feel great. And honestly, guys, just think back to when you've been sick, right? It is so draining to struggle to get up the stairs, to move around day to day. That's what it feels like when you're in a body that isn't being looked after, when you're not in a body with a wide range of physical capability. And it's a really horrible place to be stuck, especially if you're a busy 40-something. That means you've got a career, you've got a family to be caring about, or just some other responsibilities, even if you don't have that. And it just adds so much stress and makes everything harder. So we want to be feeling good. So that's really the goal, feeling good. We want to improve movement quality, improve confidence in the body, and body feel, which is a bit of an esoteric concept, I will admit. But it's something that comes up when I talk to my clients a lot. And what I want you to think about this, if you are someone who hasn't necessarily experienced feeling wrong in your body, is that I want you to imagine that you're Superman, that you've got all the capability in the world, that your body feels bulletproof, that it looks good, that you can do everything. And then I want you to imagine that you've got that body, right? And then suddenly we just make you a normal person. Superman would feel lost, right? And that is oftentimes what people can feel like in their bodies. It's not necessarily that extreme. It could be that maybe they've got a back injury and it's just sucked the mobility in their back away. It's left them in pain. It's made them feel distrusting of their body. It's made them feel uncomfortable day to day. And it just leaves them feeling wrong in their body. So we want to improve this body feel, and that is something that we will get through this. And of course, in that process, you'll gain body confidence, you'll gain some self-love, you'll probably be able to look at yourself in the mirror better. You might even improve your confidence naked with your partner. You might have better sex. There's all these things that come with body feel, but something I just want to highlight because it is an important part of training. So when we're making these athletic plans, you want to think, is this going to make me actually feel good day to day? And the way we're going to achieve this is we're going to pursue power, we're going to try and build movement options, we're going to develop strength, we're going to do muscle gain, mobility, cardio. Really well-rounded program, right? We're going to essentially try and target all of our athletic qualities. Obviously, I haven't listed them all there, but we're going to touch on them all. So, first things first, before we jump into this, let's just think what we need if we're going to create a plan for someone who's trying to live a day-to-day life. We've already mentioned it needs to be well-rounded in terms of athletic qualities, but we also want to make sure it's well-rounded in terms of movement, because if they're only training 3 hours a week, then they probably don't have the best movement exposure. They're not necessarily doing sports, they're not necessarily running in their spare time, they're not moving odd objects. So we want to do a sensible exercise selection split. And a really nice thing that I have stuck with over my life that I always like to just show people, because this is something I learned on my very first ever personal training course, however many years ago that was now. bloody hell, over half a decade. I'm getting fucking old. But we've got some like fundamental movement patterns, and these things are really easy to represent with barbells. And not everything does quite fit into it. Some things will kind of cover two things. Some things will be a bit of a combination movement. And, you know, admittedly, it seems a bit complex to fit things like power and things in there, but we'll talk through it. We'll understand how we can. So we've got a few major types of things we can do. We've got vertical pushing, vertical pulling, horizontal pushing, horizontal pulling. We've got core rotation, flexion and extension. That's this way and this way. And then we've got rigidity. And then we have knee dominant lower movements, hip dominant lower movements. Now, of course, not all movements can just be pegged so easily into this. If we were to take the example of a kettlebell windmill, you're going to have some core rotation, you're going to have some core flexion, you're also going to have a bit of vertical pushing. You know, as you go down, it also kind of turns into horizontal pushing. So it kind of fits like on all of these different things. And a lot of movements will, but we can have a rough idea of covering all the ways we should be able to move here. And you'll see I put 1 and 2 here. That's because we can do these unilaterally or bilaterally. And that's another thing we want to consider when we think about movement options. So these are really important. And just to give you another example of how things can fit into here, like if you were thinking about sprinting, that is just going to be a hip dominant lower movement. Of course, it is a little bit of a knee dominant lower movement. Of course, it's going to involve your core. Of course, it's going to involve your upper body. But the biggest thing you're going to feel fatigued if you sprint is your glutes and hamstrings, right? There's a reason sprinters have bundao, if we're being honest, and that's because it's a hip dominant lower. So we can fit those things in there. Just want to draw your attention to this, and we'll look back at this when we finish the program, because you'll see we've ticked all of this off, and that's how we know we're getting good movement options. So jumping over into the actual plan then, we've said we're going to do this in 3 hours a week, so we're going to do that. And I've done it in an hour day each time. So day 1, you're going to do 5 minutes of movement prep. That is just to set you up well for the session. That might look like something like mobility. It might be some plyometric prep. It's going to depend on what you've got coming. But we want to have this in there. And we need to remember this person is very busy. They train 3 hours a week, which means day to day, they're not getting that much movement. So someone like myself, I work from home. I can just get up, I can stretch, I can move. I also do fitness for a job. So oftentimes I'll be filming tutorials, all these sort of things. I'm pretty much warm and ready to go most of the time. But if you spend all day in an office, sat down for 8 hours at a time, you've gone in the car either way and then you go to the gym, you're not just going to be able to jump into it. So I love to have this movement prep in there, and it's a great way to integrate just some sort of general movement and mobility whilst getting them ready to actually have a better session. Following on from that, we would do a superset, 15 minutes, bit lower power, and then a vertical push strength. So obviously we're not even looking at the actual exercises yet, but you can see, well, we're going to have ticked one of these off, we're going to have ticked this push off. Then we're going to have a lower plyo in our next superset and a horizontal pull in our next superset. Strength versus plyo. And again, you can see we're going to be ticking things off here depending on what we're doing. So far, this is only 35 minutes, guys. We'd then move into a 10-minute superset. Upper hypertrophy, core rotation. So we'll see what those exercises are. But again, you can see we're ticking this off. We're ticking this off. Move on to a 10-minute superset. Upper body hypertrophy, lower body mobility / hypertrophy. You'll see why when I show you the exercises. And again, we're ticking this off. Not going to say that for every exercise. I just want to make the point that you can see before we even look at movements we're doing. We're ticking off these things. And then we would finish with a 5-minute cool down flow. And what this would look like is really different depending on the client, what specific mobility things they're dealing with. But it would just be something where we actually have them moving fluidly through a load of different ranges to try and just open up the body a little bit. And do you know what? I'll actually link an example of this down below. This is actually a private video for Different Breed clients. So I'm gonna give it to you guys for free, and it was made by the incredible Yoga with Olive, who is a great coach that we often collaborate with at Different Breed just to give our clients some information and some different things to work off of. So have a look below and you can see what I mean by a cool down flow. Right, day 2, slightly different. So what you'll notice here is on day 1, we really focus on that strength, power, hypertrophy, general movement. Day 2, it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to do 10 minutes of movement prep. So that movement prep is going to be something where we're actually exploring movement options of the body, really trying to get the client aware of what they can do and what it feels like to move in the body. After that, you go into a 10-minute superset of a movement options builder. So that's just something where it's like a little bit more of a general full body movement that we want to be able to do that's going to allow us to access different things. And we want to basically use something specifically to open up that movement option, which we'll see when we'll look at the specific exercises. But I think it's always important to go through the structure of a plan first so you can see what's happening and then understand how we fill it in. And this is how I always like to present programs. If you didn't know, I actually present a lot of programs like this in the Different Breed Athlete Academy, which is our education platform. I'll leave a link to it below if you want to check it out, and I actually go into programs in way more detail than this, so it can get pretty interesting. But this is how I like to lay it out, because trust me guys, once you've seen the structure, then you see the exercises and you can look at the structure and go, oh, it's really easy to do this no matter what exercises I want to do. After that, first 20 minutes, 12-minute superset, a bit of upper hypertrophy, and then an upper movement options builder. So this one is just going to be a more general body one. This is going to be one that's really looking at the upper body. Then an 8-minute superset, core flexion, task extension, bit of lower body hypertrophy. And then we've only counted up to 20, 32, 40 minutes. And we're going to finish off with 20 minutes worth of cardio. Well, a Metcon here, so we're going to get some volume on the triceps and biceps, because who doesn't like big arms? Of course, you could do that with something else. Say you were someone who didn't want to build their arms. Actually, a conversation I've had with a guy I used to go to school with, it was a really interesting conversation, is someone who views themselves as non-binary, and they found that when they were working with a bodybuilding coach who really forced them to, work upper body because they were assigned male at birth, that they found it just developed a bit of gender dysphoria, right? So we may not necessarily give them triceps, biceps. It could be, I don't know. It could be lunges and kettlebell swings, and then you do something like a ski erg. So it's a lot more lower body focus to build that volume. But essentially it's a Metcon to build cardio, because we want to build cardio. We want to make them feel like they've got more energy. And it gives us some free volume to build a bit of muscle, improve confidence in the body. And then just finish off on a steady state bike, which is, again, more cardio. And it's a great way to cool down. And actually we'll touch on this as we talk about the full breakdown in a bit. But this is a fun way to just finish off your cardio and get a little bit more out of it. And then day 3, 5 minutes movement prep, similar to day 1. And what you'll see is that I've kind of made a reflective program either side here. So we've got day 1 is pretty similar to day 3. Day 2 is relatively unique. So it gives us that sort of like higher intensity, lower intensity, higher intensity undulation. You can see my mouse there to this. And actually what I'll do is just label this here. So we can think higher intensity, orange. It's not fucked, but it is higher intensity. And then this one is a little bit more nice, pretty medium intensity. And that really makes that mirror very clear here. But what you'll also see is, so 5 minutes movement prep, 5 minutes movement prep, 15-minute superset, but we've swapped it around. We're now going for upper power, lower strength. And you can see we start pairing this up. Upper power, lower strength. Very similar over here, right? Then you're going to do quick 5 minutes on some lower speed / hypertrophy, and that's going to prep you well for this high intensity cardio, which you're going to do there in that block. And then you just move on to a cool down flow. And just to mention, the astute of you will have seen, I actually changed these in whatever cut you would have seen, because I had written them down wrong compared to the exercises. So let's go on to the exercises. Let's have a look at what we're actually fucking doing in this plan, right? And make it make sense. So day 1, you're going to do a tricep for your movement prep. And I love triceps for movement prep. Something I used to do when I worked in person, because when you work with in-person clients, you've got maybe 6 back-to-back, 7 back-to-back, and you've got to get through these sessions, get people good training results in the hour you've got. So a really nice way to warm up is just a quick little tricep. Just going to loop through it, no rest, and as long as you pick some sensible exercise, it's going to prep you really well for your session. So what you're going to do is you're going to start off with these semi-deep yielding pogo hops, just getting a nice rhythm, bouncing up and down. Some dumbbell power snatch, which is just going to be light, but it's just about getting them moving, full body, moving cleanly, moving quickly, and then some body weight twist, which is just twisting, getting going. Don't know if you had my back crack there, that felt fucking good. And we're just going to get going like that. So you can see none of it's that complicated, none of it's going to be hard. It's just to get this person moving. And we'd loop through this maybe 3, 4 times, depending on how they were feeling. And it's just to get the body going. Then we would move into a superset, some seated box jumps, where you're just going to sit down on a box and fucking launch yourself, looking to build that rate of force development, and pairing that with a half kneeling single arm kettlebell / dumbbell press, which is going to challenge a bit of core stability and also a bit of unilateral work for the upper pushing. So we just have a look at this quickly. Just these first 2 exercises, that's all I'm going to say for now, is we can say, well, we've ticked off a vertical push and we've ticked off a 1, and we've ticked off jumping's kind of knee dominant and hip dominant. So I'd say it's kind of floats between the two, but we've ticked off a bit of this and we're starting to pursue power. So I'm just going to tick this off because we are making more powerful. And what we'll see is by the end of this, I will have got rid of all of those, which is going to give us a nice, well-rounded plan for this person to be really athletic and just start feeling better in their body and living their happiest, healthiest, most physically capable version of their life, which is what we're aiming for, right? Then we'll move on to some skater hops and some gorilla row. So gorilla row is an awesome one, really good for opening up the hips, but again, it's unilateral. So we can tick off this horizontal pull, and we've got a skater hop, which is unilateral knee dominant, sort of hip dominant. It's lateral as well. I'm just to say we can tick both off. Obviously, we're going to do a lot more of this, guys, but you're just going to see how quick we can tick off that we've done everything on this list. Then we do deficit push-up, half kneeling cable twist, which is fucking awesome for mobility. Actually, this half kneeling cable twist is, you'll see it on the screen now. Try this out if you haven't had the chance, because it feels so damn good at getting the body moving. And if you lean into it, you can get a really nice hip flexor stretch as well, which feels pretty good. Right, deficit push-ups, horizontal cable twist. Let's click this off quick. So rotation is done, and we're doing a horizontal push, 2 sides. And something I just mentioned here, guys, like when you look at this, obviously we're not seeing reps, sets, intensity, rest, but all of those things are essentially dictated by the goal of what you're doing. So for example, this seated box jump, we are looking to build power, and specifically in something like this, rate of force development. So we know the intensity is going to have to be high. It needs to be high effort. You're thinking kind of like an RPE 8 and up, really probably an RPE 9 to 10. And we know it's going to be lower reps. It needs to be lower volume because we need to be working in maximal. So you're probably thinking 3 to 5 reps. Probably I probably wouldn't do a single for this person at this point in the program. There's no reason they couldn't do that later down the line, but let's think 3 to 5 reps, and you're going to have about 2 to 3 minutes rest in between. Obviously, we're doing a lot of supersets, so that rest can be a little bit shorter. It's maybe not optimal, and that is something I actually want to mention here. If you are training for athleticism or bodybuilding or literally anything for that matter, and you've got a really short period of time, like 3 hours a week, you may not train everything optimally, but that doesn't fucking matter because you're still going to be able to progress really well. It just has to be good enough to drive progress. So fuck optimal, just as a reminder. And then our next superset, we got some rear delt flies, single leg calf raise. And these are just nice movements to have in there. It's a bit of straight arm strength. Again, it's horizontal pulling on a 2. And it's also, what did we do? Single leg calf raise. So it's not really a hip dominant or a knee dominant lower. In this one, like things don't really fit in perfectly, but it's just one of those things you need to do. And it's worth keeping aware of it. As you see, we will still tick all of these off. Then day 2, do a 10-minute movement loop. Now, I said this will look really different depending on the person, but I want to show you an example on the screen right now, again, from Yoga with Olive, and you'll see that what these movement loops are is it's just someone exploring space and movement options within their body. So really, depending on what your goals are, may change what you want to do. For this person in particular, we know they just want to feel more confident in their body and they want to be more mobile, more capable. So what we would probably do is give them a very general movement style, as you will see on the screen of Olive doing now. And it's just about them moving through different positions, testing their mobility and testing their capability. But if it was someone who, say, I don't know, does jiu-jitsu, maybe you would really specifically look to involve rolls, some sort of crocodile crawls, maybe even shrimps to the knees, things like that, where we wouldn't necessarily just be doing line drills, right? Because you do that in jiu-jitsu, but we'd be looking to create the ability to move comfortably in the situations that make sense for that athlete. Then we would move on to some bridge wall walks and reverse Nordic. So this is that movement options builder. Back mobility and bridges are so fucking useful, but they're something that is really hard to access for a lot of people. Even myself, I really struggle with bridges, but having that mobility is so useful. Don't believe me, just look at Armin Tsarukyan escaping that fucking guillotine from Dan Hooker. That's just back mobility. And you'll see wrestlers do this all the time, gymnasts use them, it's just good. Back mobility is good, shoulder mobility is good, hip flexor mobility is good, and a bridge is one of the best movements you'll ever have to build that. So we'll just do some bridge wall walks because they're accessible at any level. You don't need to go all the way down. Of course you can, but this person probably isn't mobile enough. So we'll go partial and build it up over time. It's a really nicely scalable movement. We'll do some reverse Nordics as well. We would probably do these with a band. The person probably doesn't have the strength through range to go full range on a reverse Nordic without any assistance, if they've even got the mobility to go full range, but you can band that and then it's super comfortable. So let's just put in brackets, banded here, super easy. We'd then move on to a superset, 12 minutes. So bear in mind, guys, it's so fast. We'll do some pause chin-ups, volume I've put, so that would be body weight. We're just doing as many pause chin-ups as we can, probably RIR 1, RIR 2, because we're looking to build up the volume, maybe 4 sets. And then we're going to pair that with kettlebell windmill. And the kettlebell windmill is an awesome movement. We've already mentioned it. It covers loads of different things, but it also allows us to progress to bent press, which then allows us to get some external rotation of the shoulder and even more heavy loads overhead. So we're just building strength and volume in the middle here. Then we'll do some GHD sit-ups, some Zercher Cossack squats. I will admit I'm potentially being a little bit keen on how easy it would be to fit that into 8 minutes, but you could do it. It's mainly because these exercises suck, so you won't want to rest like a minute in between, but you could rest a minute in between and get them done. And you'd probably just be doing 2-3 sets here, relatively high volume. And with those GHD sit-ups, we can use these to leverage mobility. We can really, rather than just doing it and come back up, we can stretch in that bottom and actively extend using gravity to support us. And then you're getting some extension strength and some flexion and building mobility. So they're a great movement. Zercher Cossack squats are lovely for the lower body, really good for hypertrophy in the quads, and great for mobility of the hips in general. And then we finish that day off on this assault bike Metcon. We've already spoken about how this could look different, but the one I picked would be, 10 cals on the assault bike. You're just gonna blast it. You're then gonna go overhead barbell tricep extensions, and you're just gonna slam them, and then you're gonna do barbell curls. And honestly, what I'll do here, it'd be this easy, 10 reps, 4 rounds. That's all you need, and it's enough volume to be building upper body size. It's gonna hit your cardio really well. And if it's 4 rounds, you're gonna be able to go at it hard. So this is gonna take place in your anaerobic system. And then what you're gonna do, as soon as you finish, get back on that bike, and just 10 minutes, really easy, steady state, until you can nasally breathe, relax, finish those 10 minutes. And then you can force your aerobic system to do some work in recovery, which if you're someone like a jiu-jitsu athlete, that's gonna help you recover in between rounds. If you're just someone who this person is day to day, it's gonna help you just recover when you're tired after doing something anaerobic, and it's also gonna build your aerobic system, which is the thing that provides your energy for most of the day. So why not put it in there? Just really nice. Basically, anytime you do a high intensity thing in your anaerobic, do some steady state until you're back to normal, and you will boost your aerobic as well. Really, really nice way to train. I don't remember the guy I took that from. His name might be Chris Henshaw, Matt Fraser's old running coach, or swimming cardio coach, I would say. And then day 3, we're going to do something really similar to day 1. So you've got this 5-minute tricep. This time we're going to do kettlebell front squat behind the neck strict press. These, I will note, will be light. This is to get moving. This isn't training stimulus. And that's something that's really important to remember. Warm-ups and movement prep are not training stimulus in the sense we're doing them to drive progress. We are doing them to set ourselves up such that we can drive progress better in the main body of our workout. So these should not be physically draining. This is to warm up. And then some banded stiff ankle pogo hops. Obviously, we had them doing some semi-deep building over here. The stiff ankle pogo hops are a bit harder. They'll be less of a warm up for someone who hasn't been doing a lot of plyos, but we do want their ankles to be getting a bit stiffer so they're able to move on to sprints longer term. Then we move into our supersets. We're gonna do a med ball slam, which is a great way to generate power in a down motion. And just whilst I think about it, actually, something I want to mention, you'll notice I didn't pick any Olympic lifting for this, but they want to develop power. Olympic lifting requires a huge amount of technique input and a huge amount of mobility. And as much as coaches like to be like, oh, just do it, it's not the be all and end all of developing power for anyone. I mean, oh my God, you go look at some free runners out there that have never touched a barbell in their life. And they've just got that powerful from jumping. And for someone like this who hasn't got a lot of time, they don't want to learn about loads of fitness, they haven't necessarily got the best mobility, we don't want to give them a load of stuff that just sucks and isn't even going to be that good at generating power because they need to build their technique and their mobility before they can even generate power with it. We just want to give them stuff where they can be powerful, like jumps, like med ball slams, that are very easily accessible. We've then got the Hatfield squat, which is just a really easy way to load a squat heavy, especially if your mobility isn't that good and your squat pattern isn't that good. Just get on the racks, do the Hatfield squat. Super easy, and you can build loads of strength. And whilst I'm thinking about it, actually, let's tick off some of the stuff we're doing up here. So we've got that slam, that vertical pull. Boom, that's a 2. Done. We have also got the Hatfield squat. So we've done our knee dominant lower double here. And then we move on to barbell push press, which is some upper body power, and to split stance good morning. So we've done our hip dominant lower here, and we've done our vertical push here. Done. Really, really nice. So I like a push press. And then I paired that with a split stance good morning. Now, something that some people will hate here is there's not a barbell squat, there's not a barbell deadlift, there's no bench. It is just it's just a training plan. But this person doesn't want to be a power lifter. They want to improve confidence, improve body feel, improve their movement options. And that is what this program is going to do. They're going to get stronger, they're going to get fitter. Squat, bench, and deadlift, whilst great exercises, are not the be-all and end-all of every movement, especially barbell, squat, bench, deadlift. So you don't have to have them in there. This split stance good morning is going to build wicked posterior chain strength and provide an awesome mobility stimulus. So it's what we want to do. And I'll mention with this Hatfield squat and the split stance good morning and the push press, this is all core rigidity. So that's gone. I realized I didn't actually talk about this on the second day, so sorry guys. But we got the flexion and extension right as well, so we've done that. This is ticked off too. We'll just get rid of core. Then you're going to move on to hamstring tantrum. Hamstring tantrum is a disgusting exercise that really sucks, but it's an amazing way to introduce velocity into the hamstrings in a flexed position, which is how you use them when you sprint. You flex very quickly, right? That's the main way you use your hamstrings. Of course, there's times where if you're a grappler, you're going to use your hamstrings, but it's very rare to need to pull down really hard and slow. It's very common to need to move them fast. So we want to train our muscles at a fast speed if we move them fast. So a hamstring tantrum can be great, especially as this person hasn't been training a lot of speed and power. And then we're going to finish this off with some hill sprints. And the reason I picked hill sprints and the reason I put them at the end of this day is there's a few reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Firstly, this person hasn't done a lot of power work in a while. If we were to just have them sprint on flat ground, they would just probably not do that well. They probably wouldn't go that fast. They might even get hurt because there's a lot of impact, right? It's really hard to recover from. But if we put them on a hill, there's less impact. So it's probably not going to hurt them. They're going to be able to recover from the impact. They're also pre-fatigued, so they're not going to be able to get like super fast to a point where they could risk hurting themselves, but it's still going to develop power because they're going to have to put in a lot of effort. Their nervous system is still going to have to fire, and they're doing other power work as well. Let's bear in mind, we're doing things to build up this exposure. And the other nice thing about putting it on a hill is that it's just like quite fucking hard without needing to go full beans. So basically hill sprints, bit of reduced impact, they're not going to go as fast because they're pre-fatigued, and you can build up like good stimulus, good power without needing to go full beans because it's on a hill. Like you'll feel like you're going full beans, but you're not at full speed, you're developing power. And then we'd finish off with a cool down flow similar to the one we spoke about before. And I know I didn't tick all of these off, so let's just do that very quickly now. So we don't technically have a vertical single arm, but you don't need to get all of this absolutely perfectly done. Do we have a horizontal push single arm? No, but we have done a horizontal push. We have done a horizontal pull. Those movement options have been touched on. And keep in mind, we've got these movement loops here where they're going to be doing relatively unilateral things, pushing horizontally, maybe pulling vertically. So we have hit enough here to do that. And if you consider the arm work, we've done some more. And obviously this is a dual movement. You could make these dumbbells and then you really could make it single. So super easy. And then have we ticked off movement options? Yes. Have we ticked off strength? Yes. Have we ticked off muscle gain? Well, we're doing a lot of fucking training, so you're going to get bigger because you just need overload and mechanical tension. And have we done mobility and cardio? Yes. So you can see how, for someone who isn't necessarily that advanced, we haven't picked any advanced movements, we've not done anything crazy, you can develop really significant athleticism in just 3 hours a week. That's all it takes. And if you want to live with the best possible quality of life, with the best health you can, then you need to be training like a generalist athlete. That's just the way it goes, guys. So if you enjoyed that, guys, and you want to learn more about why and how we would program in this way, and actually more of the details in terms of what would reps look like, what would sets look like, how do you progressively overload, then you can head to the Different Breed Academy, which I have mentioned already. This is an 8-week course. It is a one-time payment of $69. And that is it. You get access to the 8-week course. It covers everything from progressive overload to rest between sets to full program breakdowns. And you also will get access to a full community, which is pretty vibrant and nice to hang out in and just chat to people. Oh, and I will mention, we also continually add content into that. It's not something you are ever expected to pay more for. It is just something we do to keep it updating. So if you want to find out more about athletic training and how to do it, go to the link below. The Different Breed Academy is there and you can check it out and learn all sorts of things about athletic training and how to do it. And that is it, guys. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed yapping away to you, and I will catch you in the next one.